Iyer, PBSM, ABSM, born on 10th November 1950 in a small town, Asansol in West Bengal. Father was a mining engineer in the coal fields. Early education in St. Patrick's High School, completed schooling in 1966. Joined National Defence Academy in 1967 as an Air Force cadet. Commissioned into the IF in Jan 1972 as a fighter pilot, and initial years were spent flying MiG-21 squadrons. On promotion to higher ranks, commanded the Jaguar Squadron, commanded 2 air bases in the western sector, as well as the College of Air Warfare in Secunderabad. On promotion to Air Marshal, served as Air Officer Promotional in Air Headquarters, and subsequently as Air Officer Commanding in Chief Training, commanded Bangalore. Retired on 30th November 2010. Awarded the Param Vishisht Seva Medal and the Atit Vishisht Seva Medal for distinguished services. Married to Mrs. Bala Iyer, the Air Marshal has a daughter who is a pilot with Jet Airways and a son who is a senior manager with Madura Fashions and Lifestyle. Last but not the least, the Air Marshal plays golf. Thank you.
He decorated with numerous honors for his service to the country. Indeed, we are all privileged to have Mr. Iyer among us. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, sir, for making it today here. We will now go to the main program, that is, listen to what Air Marshal Sir has talked to us about India's defense preparedness, military affairs, our relationship with our neighbors, and all. Thank you so much, sir. Please. To those of you who are present here, Mr. Prakash Raman is the convener of Manthana. I think most of you are there.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's a pleasure for me to come here before you to be speaking about matters which concern the armed forces of the country. It is not very often that we from the military get a chance to speak to an audience such as you, and hence it gives me even greater pleasure to be able to put across certain views of mine. Not only mine, but these are the views which many in the military share. We would like to share it with as many of our countrymen as possible, and opportunities like this are always welcome to me. And thank you to Manthana for having me over today, and thanks to all of you for coming over and dare I say, concerns all of us. When Mr. Nikunj Shah came to me to invite me over to talk to an audience like you, the first question was, what should I speak about? Because basically I wanted to keep the topic relevant, to keep the topic in such a manner that all of you would be able to associate with it. So I would request you that once I finish my talk, if there are any issues which I have left out, which may be quite few, please feel free to express views. Correct me if there is anything which I have said which is not agreeable to you, because it is an interactive kind of a session. We would like to hear your views. I would like to give you mine, but that is not the final word on anything. So please feel free to come up with your suggestions on matters which I may not have discussed, or even on those which I have discussed, to be able to put your views across so that we are better informed at the end of the day. So what I have done is basically selected 5 or 6 topics. I will start basically with the security situation as it exists in the country today, the neighborhood in which we live in, the challenges before the country, how we are tackling these challenges, and what we need to do in the near future to be able to do things a little better than what we have done in the past. I would then go on to talk about the concept of the Chief of Defence Staff. You must have heard of this concept. How was it supposedly to be introduced? Why was it to be introduced? What is gone wrong? Why hasn't it been introduced? What are the pros and cons for the position of the Chief of Defence Staff? I would then move on to a contentious subject, which is the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, which is a topic which has been much talked about. And being the defence services feel a particular requirement for this particular act, but there are so many others who feel that this act is not required in today's day and age. So we have both sides of the story, which I'm keen to discuss and to get your views also on the subject. Women in the armed forces, a topic which is generally much heat of day because women are not permitted in the combatant arms of the services, whether the Air Force, Army or Navy. Why is it so? Why have you run this policy? Is it relevant? Do we need to change it? This is something which I would like to put across to you and get your views on. There are other issues such as the CIH here, the survey issue. Then we have civil-military relations, which I want to talk about because there is much to be done in this particular sphere. I would also like to touch upon the MiG-21, which is being referred to as a flying coffin in many of the discussions. Why did we get this aircraft? Why are we still persisting with this? And what do we need to do in the future to make sure that we don't meet with so many accidents in the Air Force and in defense services in particular? What do we need to make sure we reverse this trend? So we talked initially about the security situation in our country, in the neighborhood. And what I could do is basically deal with the external situation. Because internal situation is something which I think a police officer or a person who's been associated with the internal security situation would be better informed to talk about. I will talk only about the external situation because that is what we in the armed forces are dealing with and will continue to deal with. As far as the external situation is concerned, we start firstly with the country Pakistan, which is our immediate neighborhood, our immediate neighbor in the west. We all know the circumstances under which partition took place. I will not go into those issues. But I would like to take a little bit about subsequently, when there were these insurgents backed by the military of Pakistan who came across and started closing in on Kashmir, but the Maharaja realized that he would be better off seeking an accession to India, and that's when he asked for Indian help, and Indian help was given. The forces were very close to Kashmir, close to Srinagar, just about 40-50 kilometers away. When the Indian forces landed at Srinagar airfield, they managed to quell the forces which came across. And as the winter was setting in, because this was in October that this whole thing took place, and because of the extreme climate which followed in November, December of that year, the hostilities were called an end to. The matter was taken to the UN. And this is where we committed our first blunder, that is, we agreed to a plebiscite in Kashmir to determine what would be the future of the Kashmiris in Kashmir itself. Apart from other issues which were discussed at the UN, which was that the forces which came across from Pakistan had to go back, which they did, and continue to occupy large parts of Kashmir. That is another issue which we keep harping on when we talk about a plebiscite in Kashmir. We said that the Pakistanis themselves have not agreed to their bit of the bargain, which was to get out of Kashmir and hand over the complete territory to India first before we could take on the next step. However, this particular issue of the plebiscite has continued to go our relations with Pakistan, and constantly there have been bitterness. We fought 3 wars over this particular issue. One was in 65, one was in 71, and of course the Kargil conflict, which all of us are aware of, happened very recently. And there are tensions which will continue as a result of this state of Jammu and Kashmir. Relations with Pakistan are very complex. They realize that today they cannot win a war with us. So, the famous words of the Zulfikar Bhutto come to mind, which is, lead India with 1,000 cuts. That's what he said, that's what the policy or the strategy is they want to adopt. Which is, don't get into a direct conflict in India, but continue to play havoc with the internal security situation by instigating anti-national elements here in this country, create problems like they did in Bombay, in Mumbai, in the 26/11 episode which you are aware of, the various other incidents which have taken place in Pune, in the attack on Parliament, etc. These are things which they will constantly keep doing just to upset the equilibrium which exists in the country. The focus is basically to keep this situation alive, keep raising it in international fora to make sure that we, as the country of India, continues to be pressurized to be able to sort of keep up the promise which we gave to the United Nations in 1947. So, as far as Pakistan is concerned, they will constantly send their elements across the border in Kashmir. We will have sleeper cells in different parts of the country which will get active all of a sudden whenever they decide to instigate or create a foment trouble in any part of the country. And with the Afghanistan situation now getting even more complex, with the withdrawal of the American forces from Afghanistan later this year, handing over the control of Afghanistan to the Afghanis, we will find that there will be more number of these what should I say, fanatics from there who will now spread out to different parts of the world and try and foment as much trouble as they can. And you can be rest assured that Kashmir will also get its fair share of these fanatics who will try and create as much So as far as Pakistan is concerned, we will continue to have a strained relations with them, even if the Pakistan Prime Minister says whatever he does. The Pakistan Army, backed by the ISI, backed by the various fractions of the Islamic community there, will continue to have ill will towards us. They will not want peaceful relations with us, so we have to live with that particular thing. Of course, there are other things which I talked about, that is CRT case here and surgery issues, which I will come to a little later because they are more specific. I want the details of that as I go on and talk a little later. Next, we come to Bangladesh, which is our immediate neighbor to the east. And here we find that culturally and historically, the Bengalis have been very close to our Bengalis in West Bengal. In the sense that we have a common language, we have a common culture, we have music, we have art, we have a lot in common between the Bengalis of West Bengal and the erstwhile East Pakistan, which subsequently became Bangladesh. So they are very close to us. However, there are a couple of issues here which is played up by those elements which are not very keen on a friendly relationship between India and Bangladesh. There is a land border dispute regarding some enclaves which are there. There is the Faraka barrage issue, where water supply to Bangladesh during the lean period is always an issue. And of course, with the government, present government in West Bengal, all of you know, they will continue to oppose any solution to this problem which they think is going to affect their particular state. But it is in our interest to make sure that we solve all our issues with Bangladesh, which luckily the first visit by the Foreign Affairs Minister is to Bangladesh. And we hope that we can get Bangladesh on our side. Because, like I said, traditionally they have been very friendly with us, they look up to us, and we must make sure that we exploit this particular goodwill which is there and keep the radicals who are in Bangladesh, who are opposed to the friendship with India, at bay. Infiltration into India from Bangladesh continues to be a sore point. We always felt that they destabilize the border areas and they destabilize other parts of the country where they infiltrate in pretty significant numbers. So quickly coming to Nepal, which is our border state to the north. Being the only Hindu state in the world, they are very culturally, religiously, and other forms of where we find that there are a lot of similarities in the way we operate. And hence, there is everything positive to be gained from a relationship with Nepal. But successive governments, however, have not had this particular vision to be able to deal with the situation. And we find that now, with the Maoists having gained pretty much a lot of influence in Nepal, we find that the Nepalese government at the moment is not that friendly with us. And hence we need to work on this relationship, we need to get back the trust, the faith, and to make sure that they also become our friends in the near future. Myanmar, we've had pretty good relations with Myanmar till the time the military government came into existence there. And once the military government came into existence there, we found that there was a lot of pressure from the West to establish democracy there and to get rid of this military regime. India initially was very reluctant to have any relationships with the military regime there. But slowly we realized that it is to our detriment because China came into Myanmar in a big way. They started giving all sorts of help there. And we found that if we didn't step in and repair the relationship relationship with Myanmar, but China would have a very, very strong influence there, and which may have found very difficult to overcome in the years ahead. So we reversed the policy. We started interacting directly with the regime in Myanmar, and we found that although the Western countries were not very happy with the way we started interacting with the Myanmar government, we said that it is in our national interest that being an immediate neighbor, we have to deal with them in whichever form of government they have, and slowly work towards establishing a democracy there and to deal with the democratic government as it is formed. Sri Lanka, once again a country which is in our neighborhood, which is culturally very close to us, and there's a lot to gain from our relationship with Sri Lanka. However, once the government problem started, then you know the history as they were, the Indian peacekeeping force was sent there. And when the peacekeeping force went there, we found that there was a lot of resistance, not only from the Tamil population, but also from the Sinhalese government themselves towards the later part of the Indian peacekeeping population in Sri Lanka. And we had to withdraw from there. Not a very happy situation. And of course, the assassination of the Prime Minister made matters worse, because we found that the Tamil population was in direct conflict with the Indian state. The government in Tamil Nadu, of course, played up on the sentiments of the Tamil population and started taking their side, which made matters worse. And of course, the previous government, all of you are aware, had to rely to a large extent on the support which they got from the DNP. So they didn't take a very proactive stance as far as relationship with Sri Lanka was concerned. We hope that this government will be able to get rid of that particular support of the allies, and will be able to take a stance which is in the national interest without getting too swayed by what the regional party will say. There is a lot to gain from Sri Lanka. There are some minor issues regarding fishermen, their arrest, etc., etc. But these are issues which are not very serious, can be resolved easily. And lastly, of course, our big neighbor in the north is China. Now, the Chinese and Indians, as you all know, have very historical ties dating back to a couple of centuries, more than a couple of centuries actually. It's a very long, it's a very ancient civilization in China, similar to what we have in our country. We have a lot going for us, but however, the events post 1962 have caused a very bitter form of relationship to take place, which started with the 1962 war, and of course, subsequently, the issues which are plagued our relationship are the land disputes, whether it's Aksai or whether it is the state of Arunachal Pradesh. All these issues we need to sort out. But China is not very keen to sort out these issues in a hurry, because they want to keep this issue alive. And of course, their friendship with Pakistan makes it even more difficult for us to be able to deal with them. But they are very pragmatic people in the sense that they can segregate the boundary issues from the normal trade relationship which they are very keen on. They said these two can be segregated, we will continue to trade and big way with them. There will be some minor incidents of border crossings, of them coming across our side and we going across their side. So this sort of a cat and mouse game will continue. But however, the overall larger picture is that as long as we can manage this, manage in the sense that we don't escalate, let things escalate beyond a certain level, then we should be able to gain from our relationship with China. But of course, we need to be wary of them. We can't take them at face value. So these are issues which will determine how we contain China with the help of Japan, with the help of the US. How do we balance out this particular relationship? So all in all, we find that although the situation in our neighborhood is difficult, but if we handle it well, if we can build up relationships with countries who are friendly with us, sort out these minor elements which continue to plague our relationships, stop acting the big brother, you will find that we will win a few friends in the neighborhood which can offset our countries which are in our neighborhood. They are trying to get to Myanmar, they are trying to get to Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and of course Pakistan is a big deal. The whole idea is that they encircle us and get governments there to be favorable towards their way of thinking, which would put pressure on us and make sure that we stay in conflict with our Indian neighborhood to the detriment of our growth as a powerful nation in the neighborhood, in the region, at least in South Asia. So we need to act on this part, we need to play our parts well, which I hope this government will do. They have started off well by inviting all the SAARC country leaders to the swearing. The first visits that the Prime Minister and the External Affairs Minister have been to the immediate neighborhood. And this is a good sign, and this needs to continue, and we hope that things will improve as far as the neighborhood is concerned. I will now come to the other topic of the Chief of Defence Staff, the CDS as it's referred to. In the aftermath of the Kargil War, there was a K. Subramanian committee which was set up to review what went wrong in the Kargil War, what were the failures in the Kargil War, what happened, what could be the remedial measures. And they suggested that to get greater synergy amongst the three services, as also a greater synergy between the government and the civilian government and the armed forces, there needs to be an establishment of what was called the Chief of Defence Staff. At present, what arrangement we have is that each service, the Army, Navy and the Air Force, has got its own Chiefs of Staff. Now these Chiefs of Staff have an operational role, that is they are in direct command of the forces which are under them in their respective services. They are also responsible for policy matters regarding the services, they are also responsible for training, for acquisitions, for everything which concerns their respective services. So the scope is very, very large. And each service now starts looking after its own interests. And that is where the parochialism starts. The senior most among the three service chiefs becomes the chairman's chiefs of staff committee, and this is by rotation. Depending on when the senior most chief retires, the next person who senior most takes over. But the chairman chief of staff in the current dispensation is only the first among equals, which means that he's got no say as far as the other two